Hello, this is M. Welcome to my channel, Omni Imago. Today we are going to create from scratch a family budget. We're going to do it in Excel. And the surprise part of this video is that you are going to be able also to download it for free using your available blog, which is omniimago.com. So as you saw in the presentation video for the new campaign, now you have the opportunity to download for free some of the resources that you are seeing on YouTube. So you are able to download some of the documents, and also you can look up for the articles and to see exactly what you have on omniimago.com and to take your content for free from there. So let's get started, and to initiate by looking up for an Excel. So as we mentioned, we are going to create that Excel from scratch. And now let's take from here one blank Excel workbook. And we are going to start by creating our data sources. So what I mean by data sources, actually, I mean the data that we are going to use in the main view. So let's take some of the data that we are going to use in this family budget. The first thing that we need to have is the month. So we are going to have month over month an overview about the spendings by family member, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do, we are going to write here months, and then continue with Jan, Feb, March, and then we are going to take those ones and go until December. Also, what we might want to see, it's in certain points, the year to date. What I mean by year to date, it's actually a view, a current view in the present moment within the current year, where I want to see how my spendings are so far. So let's imagine that's the 1st of January, or the 1st of June. And by year to date, I mean the year of 2022 until the 1st of June. So all the months till a certain date. So I will add here that year to date just to have that option and to have that visibility. Then let's continue with the family members. So I'm writing here family members, and let's say that we have member 1. And then we have the member number 2, and we might want to see all family members. So let's call them all. Moving ahead with what else we might want to have, or depending on your region, your country, your currency, we might have different currencies. So let's add them here. Let's say currency, and I will put here USD, Euro, and the local currency in Romania, which is RON. I'm adding those currencies, but of course you can adapt your data as you wish. So you can customize it as much as you want, because we are going to see how it's built, and then you are going to be able to customize your own document. Next, what we need is to add some categories. So what we're going to add here, let's call them categories, and here we are going to add some categories. So we might state here rent, then the utilities, then the car, then the food. Just after the food, let's add some banking and some credits, then restaurants, if we are going to the office and we're going to the restaurant, or we are buying something to eat, simply we however, we need to cover that cost. Then the house cleaning products, then the fashion, and by fashion we can add overall everything that relates to personal healthcare, clothes, shoes, whatever we need. We can add everything under fashion. Then let's add a fun part, because we also need to have fun. And here we might have subscriptions, might have the budget that we have for going to movies or to do whatever we like. And then last but not the least, let's say that we are going to add some savings, which are not actually a cost, but in terms of use of the resources, the financial resources that we have, it's good also to have an overview about the savings. So that would be the main data that we need to have. And then to think about building the report, we need to connect that specific data with more specific views. So let me just rename it and call this one data, and I will add a new worksheet. And then in that worksheet, what I'm going to do, I will start by adding the currency, and then from here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a data validation. How I do this, I'm going to data, then I'm going to data validation list, and for the value, what I'm going to do, I'm going to check the value in data, and from data I'm going to take the currencies, the 3 currencies that we added, and then click OK. And now we have a drop-down list with the 3 currencies that we added. Then what we can do in this view, which will be the family budget tracker, actually the place where we are going to add the costs, we are going to add again the month, the current month, the month where I'm making that expense. And then in the following cell, I'm pressing on Control, Shift, and down arrow, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing to create that data validation list. And for the value, again, I'm going to take the data and to select the months without the year to date. So I'm not going to touch that year to date so far, because whenever we are going to add a cost, we are going to add that specific cost for a specific month. Never we are going to say at this point, which is not defined, I made that cost. So let me validate, and now at the column level, starting from A5, I have the option to select my month. That's perfect. Then let me add the family member. And for the family member, what I'm going to do, it's exactly the same thing. So selecting the cell just below the header and press on Control Shift down arrow, then you know already, go to data, then from data going to data validation, you know it, it's list, and select my data. And here I'm going to take family member 1 or 2, only those ones, because again, I'm not going to say I'm referring to my full family, entire family, so I'm adding that cost. I'm going to be one family member adding a cost, and we only need 2 of them. So I'm pressing OK. Now we can also select the family member. Let's continue with categories. Categories. I'm going to do exactly the same. Control Shift down arrow, then data validation, again list. And for the selection, what I'm going to do is to take our categories. So I'm taking our categories, confirming here, pressing OK, and now we can select a category. Perfect. So now what we can add is the month where we made that cost, then the family member that it's adding the cost, and then select the category. What we also need to do, let me also go between those columns until we have that specific sign, just to fit the columns to the text that we have. What we need to do next is to make an estimate. So each month what we're going to do is going to be an estimate for that specific cost, and we are going to call that one estimated. And here we are going to add values. So I don't need any drop down. That should be a free cell where I can add the amount that I estimate. Then after our estimation, where we actually making that cost, we can add a new column called actual. So the actual costs that we have for that specific type of costs based on the categories. Then what we need to add next is, of course, a difference between the two of them. So what I want to do is actually to compare. So I'm putting the equal sign just to be able to add a formula, and that formula will be the estimated minus the actuals, and press enter. So here I have a 0. Let's play a bit, and let's say that I had it's the month of January. Okay, I'm the family member number 1. I'm going to make an estimate for the rent, and my estimate is that is going to be, I don't know, 1,000. Then the actual cost, or the actual expense that I'm doing, is not 1,000, but it's actually 1,050. So my difference will be minus 50, and that is what is important. But if I let's say that if I imagine that I'm going to drag that formula because I want to have the full column populated, if I'm dragging that one, what we'll do will place 0, because whenever we don't have any kind of data, the file won't be able to know exactly what's the difference that we want to calculate. So what I need to do, what I can do actually, just for aesthetics, just to be to have a more, let's say, a smarter Excel file, I can add here a condition. So my condition would be, of course, equal if, which I'm placing before what we just mentioned, and just after the equal, if. And what we want to say, let's say that if the actual value is blank. So I'm going to move backwards actually, and to say is blank. Which cell? We said the actuals, so that cell, closing parentheses. If it's blank, I'm adding a comma. The value, if it's true, I can put double quote just to have nothing in Excel. Else, the value, if it's false, is going to use our formula. And closing again the second parenthesis. I'm pressing enter, and when I'm dragging now, you can see that is nothing, because that was our formula. If the actual cost is blank, so leave it blank. If I'm, for instance, deleting this, I won't have any difference calculated. If I have no estimate, ideally we should not have that kind of situation. If I'm adding here 1050, that's the difference. I will have a difference of 1050 based on 0. So the entire difference will be calculated. But in most cases, we are going first to plan and then to actually make that specific cost. Then what we might need to have it's a sort of variation. So we are going to call this one variation. And what I mean by variation, I want this time to see the percentage, the difference in percentages between the actual cost and the estimate that we did. So I can do it very, very simply. I'm putting an equal sign and then I'm taking the actuals divided by estimated. And here I have 105 that I can go to home, turn it into a percentage, and I can see that 105%, the actuals based on the estimates. But I don't actually need to see that the difference, the entire difference starting with 0, because if I made the estimate of about 1000, I only want to see the difference which goes above or below 1000, not the rest. So what I can do here is actually to calculate the delta. And what we have here, we can put all this between parentheses and then add a -1, which stands for -100%, and press enter. And now we can see that the difference is actually 5% actual versus budget for the rent. Again, if we are dragging the formula, we have again an error. That error, the hashtag, and then divided by 0 results from the fact that not having any data here, Excel is showing us this error. So let's do exactly the same thing and let's add some criteria, some syntax in our formula. So what we want to do, if it's an error, because actually that divided by 0, it's an error. If it's an error, what we want to do, let me add a new parenthesis. What we want to do, if the value is true, let's have our formula. If it's an error, then we can add double quote and close parentheses. Why we're calling this parentheses? Because we need to have the same number of parentheses starting and closing our formula. So what we have here, we have the formula E5 divided by D5 between quotes, between parentheses, sorry, which are red, and also the if error, which is black. So I have two parentheses starting and I need to have the same number of parentheses closing. Pressing enter, nothing happens so far, but if I'm dragging, then you can see the difference. You can see the difference because that error won't show up anymore. And that would be actually what we need to have in terms of columns and data. But at the same time, what we are missing here is actually a format that allows us to see those numbers, to see those references, depending on the currency that we are adding here. So what I need to do is to format that part where we have the amounts, depending on what we are putting here as a currency. So what I'm going to do is to simply take all that part, again, Control Shift and down arrow, select everything. And here I need to add a new rule. And my rule should be based on formula. And my formula will be really, really simple and straightforward. So I will put here an equal sign just to start my formula. And then what I'm going to do is to take what I have here. So I added the currency, if that is equal to USD, and that's it. That's our entire formula. If it's equal to USD, what to do? We go to formatting, and then we go to currency, and we select dollars, and we press OK, and again OK. Now what's happening here? If I have USD, it's going to show me the values in USD. If I'm putting euro, I have nothing. If I'm putting RON, I have nothing. So what I need to do, exactly, you guessed it, we need to add 2 more conditions based on the remaining currencies that we have. We select again the 3 columns. We go again in home, conditional formatting, new rule, based on formula, and again we have equals to the currency, and then again if it's equal to euro, sorry, let me add also the quotes, euro, then what I want to have here is to show the values. I'm looking for the euros. I really dislike that because I need to look up a lot. Show me in euros. Perfect. Okay, and that's it. Let's test it again. Now if I'm putting here euros, it's going to show me the values in euros. If I'm going to USD, again it will be USD. So what I need to do is also to add a condition based on the situations where we have the RON. So again, use a formula, then let's go up. This equals RON. Then format currency. We go to RON, and here we have the Romanian lei, which is actually RON. And now if I'm changing the currency here, we can see that everything changes correctly. So we have everything based on our formulas, and that's actually pretty much everything that we need to have. If I'm going to the second line and I'm adding member number 2 for February, member number 2 added the rent will be in USD, estimate on 990, so 990. Then you can see now that the currency is automatically added, and that's perfect. And the actual, let's say a good surprise, also 980 plus $10, so a minus 1% variation between the estimates and the actuals. And that's pretty much what we need to have in our tracker. So let's call this as family budget, and let's add a new worksheet where we are going to have a sort of dashboard. So we are going to have an overview month over month, year to date, really to have the overview about our costs per member, per family, and so on and so forth. So what I'm doing here is, first, what I'm going to do is to add here the month. And again, for the month, what I'm going to do is to add here in the column just after, in column B, an equal and today, which what we'll do, will populate with the current date, the date of today. And then if I'm continuing on the column number C, and we are going to see later on why I'm adding all those columns and how it will look like. If I'm adding here a formula like equal month based on what we have here, so that will be dynamic, that will change month over month. So in February, let's say on the 10th or 14th of February, the date will change because that date at that specific time will be different, will change, and also my month. But here I have the month number 1, which is correct. January is not month number 1. But if I'm going to data and looking to what I have here, I have the months, the abbreviation of the months. I don't have the month number. So I don't need to have actually the month number, but I need to have the name of the month. So what I can do here is to get back and actually change that formula. I'm adding an equal sign once, sorry, and what I want to have is text. It's the month name will be text, and then the text will be based on what we have here, and then the format of that text will be quotes M, which stands for month, and press enter. And now we have January. And that's exactly what we wanted to have. What we can do additionally is to have that static formula that will interpret the month based on the current date, while we want to have the option to have some values. So what I'm going to do, and that's really a trick that in some cases is known, in some cases is not known. If I'm going to data, again, you already know, I'm going to data validation, I'm going to list, I'm going to what I want to have, and then go here to data and select all my months, including year to date. This time, because in the dashboard, we also want to have year to date. I'm confirming. Now what is happening is selecting here the month automatically. So if I'm changing here, for instance, let's say 14th, 02, 2022 is changing to February. And that's perfect. Let me put that back today. And again, it's showing me that it's January, but I also can change the month, and that's great. That's simply great because I have the full flexibility. Then I can add family member. And here I want to have, again, drop down, and my drop down to be based on a list. And then what I'm going to do is to go to data, and from data to take member number 1, member number 2, and all family members. Because again, we want to have them all in the dashboards. Sorry. So now I can select either number 1. Let me also move it to column C, and again, you will see later on why. So when you go and you have that sign, you can move your data where you want to have it, and we want to have it here to leave that column blank. And then we go to currency, and for currency we can do two things. We can go to data, add a list, or what we can do, let's try it. I'm going to data, and to family budget, and where I have that that currency here, I'm copying simply Control C, and then I'm getting back to, for the moment, sheet number 3, paste it, and now we have the drop down. So we can create a drop down, or we can copy a drop down that we created previously. So we can do that also. Then what we want to have is actually to have our estimated and then our actuals based on some criteria. So what we want to have here is actually, we will like to have an estimated and actual based on what we select here. That might be a different month, that might be year to date, that might be per member number 1, member number 2, for all family members. And again, we are going to change the currency, but we are going to use the same formatting that we saw before. So now to add that formula, Pay attention because we are going to add a bit more complex formula in our cells. So let's start by imagining that first we want to see the scenario where both the month, it's year to date. So we want to see all the months till a certain moment for all the family members. And here we want to see the total. Again, taking the example that we discussed about before, the 1st of June 2022, then the year to date at that point would be January plus February plus March and so on and so forth till June. And then for all the family members, we will need actually to have a total based on what we added in the family budget, what we added in the sheet number 2. So we need to start by adding here a condition. So we are going to place an equal sign and then add an if, a single if, a multiple if, sorry, an ifs, which is stands for multiple ifs. And then when we said that we want to look up for the month and the family member, so to be year to date and all family members, we need to have two criteria. So we have multiple conditions, and then for the two criteria we are going to add an and. And our first and would be if here in C1 equals year to date, and then we add a comma, and this is the second part of that specific and. It's C3 equals quotes all, closing quotes, closing parentheses. If the value is true, what we want to have. And what we want to have is actually, if it's all family members for the entire year, we want to have a simply sum. We want to do the sum of what we have here in family budget. We want to have the sum of everything that we estimated. So Control Shift down arrow, and we have everything. And this is exactly what we want to do. Then we add a comma, and we continue imagining that what we have here, let me also closing the help. The second criteria, what we want to do, if in the dashboard C1 it's equal to year to date, only year to date, then what we want to do is to have sum if only one condition. Why we need only one condition? Because if we have the year to date, then the only condition will be based on the family member. We don't need any other condition. We need a conditioned sum, but with only one condition. And that's the only difference that we have between the ifs and the SUMIFs and the SUMIF, or the sum. Here we have simply the sum. Here we have the SUMIF with only one condition, and later on we will see also the SUMIFs with multiple conditions. So SUMIF, and then what we are going to do is, if in our family budget, the first topic is the range, where we have the range. And the range that we want to look up for is actually in column B. This is the entire range from B5 to BX. And then we add a comma, which is the criteria. And our criteria is very, very simple. It's actually what we have here as family member. So we want to have, sorry, just once. We want to see only the family member. And then the sum range. And again, for the sum range, what we're going to do is to go in the family budget. Let me zoom out, go to the family budget, and again, we have the range here in D, where we have our estimates, because we are still working on the estimates. Closing parentheses and adding a comma. Then, what we need to do is the third logical condition, which will be if we said that we want to have the year to date, then to make the sum per family member, and then the second part actually will be based on if the family member is all, then what to do. Again, we are going to repeat that SUMIF, and in this case, what we are going to do is the range that we need to have. So it's saying range, criteria, and sum range. So our range, it's again in family data, but in this specific case is actually the family, is the month. That's the only remaining criteria. And then the month, we get back here and we say that the criteria, it's here. It's going to be specified as the month that we are selecting. And then the sum range would be, again, the family budget, go up, estimated, Control Shift, down arrow, and that is it. This is exactly what we need to have. Then, if the value is true, we are going to have that calculation, and we can continue with the fourth logical condition. So we manage here to have out of those ifs to the logical number 4. And then for the fourth condition, what we need is if it's not year to date, if it's not all. So if we have a specific month for a specific family member, 2 conditions, then we want to have a specific sum conditioned by what we are going to have in the dashboard. So first we need 2 criteria, and I will start by and for and, I'm going to place here, sorry, let me zoom out again, if and, sorry, I have here in sheet 3, the year to date, let me split it once, this, and I'm going to use those signs to say not equal to year to date. And then I'm putting here a comma and saying that this not equal to all, and that those were the and condition that we added. I'm adding a comma. Now I'm doing some SUMIFs. And what I need to have by those SUMIFs. Let me, so I have here some ifs, sorry, but I cannot see our formula anymore. Ah, sorry, I did a mistake. I didn't close the codes. So this was why it wasn't recognizing my formula. So now some ifs, and what I need to do is the sum range. Again, for the sum range, I'm going to the family budget, going up, 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 from top to bottom, Control Shift, down arrow. I want, there I have my sum. Then the criteria range number 1. And my criteria range number 1 is actually what I have here at the month level, and adding a comma, If in that specific range I have the month from here, and then the criteria range number 2, which is based on what we have here. So let me go up. The second will be family member, entire column. Then going to the sheet 3, the family member equals to criteria 2, what we have here. So it's criteria 1, and here is criteria range. Okay, and then the criteria number 2, it's this one. And this is exactly what we need to have, and then close parentheses twice and enter. What we have here? What was actually that formula that we created, that long chain of formulas? It says that year-to-date all family members is 1,990. Let's see if it's correct. Let me go here, Control-Shift up arrow. If I'm taking this, the estimates still, what I have here is 1,990. So exactly what I'm having here. Now let's do an additional thing, which would be to rename our worksheet. So what I'm doing is right click and call it dashboard, and that's actually it. And now we called our worksheet dashboard. We still have here, we have the year to date, and we have all the family members, and we can see that it's 1,990. If we go to the family budget, we can see that estimates are 1,990, and then the same in our dashboard. But let's look up, for instance, for January, for family member number 1, and we can see that we have 1,000. If you remember, we put here family member now 1,000, and that was all for January. Member number 2, if we select still for January, member number 2, it was 0. And then for member number 2 in February, what we added was 990. So our formula is working. What we can do now is actually to, for the actuals, instead of building from scratch the same formula, what we can do is to go here, go till the end, copy our entire formula, Control C, then pressing enter, and here let's paste it, because we only need a difference. Wherever we had, let me press enter, now are equal but incorrect. Whenever we have the column D, which was standing for the estimates, we need to put the column E, which are the actuals. So what I need to do here is actually to get back to my formula and change here E5 to E 1,048. Then go here again. We are changing D with E. With E. Then where we had D, we are going to place E. Again, E. And here the same from D, E. And here E. And press enter. Now what we have here is the actual for member number 2 in February, 980, which is correct. If we want to see the two family members, we have here the total, which is 2030. So let's go for the year to date, January and February, all family members, 2030. So our formula is working. What we need to do now is actually to take the formatting and also to add that kind of formatting and to change our currency depending on what we are choosing here. So what we can do is to do exactly the same thing. What I'm going to do is going to select the two of them by pressing the Control keys. Going to Home, Conditional Formatting, New Rule, Use Formula, and here equal euro. Then doesn't matter the order that you are putting, so that might be any order that you like. If it's euro, then what we want to see here is, let's scroll down till the euros and press OK. And again, OK. So if I have euro, it's good. It's showing the values in euro. If I'm doing USD, again, happening the same thing. Taking the two of them, conditional formatting, new rule, based on formula. If this equals USD, then the formatting should be this one. Okay, and now let's add a new rule already. Again, based on formula, if this equal RON, then what I want to have is for the formatting, the currency, and I'm scrolling down until I find my lei Romanian. Press OK. Good. Now what's happening? I'm putting here euro shows in euro, RON shows in RON. That's good. Perfect. Then what else we can add here is actually a difference. So what we can do is to go here, for instance, and say that we want to see the difference, and for the difference what we want to see is actually the estimated minus the actual. And then what we can do is simply to go here, format painter, we copy the formatting, and we can see that we have a difference of 40 lei in this case, or USD, or euro. So that's already fixed. Then we said that we also want to see a variation. So now we have here the variation, and the variation would be actually the actual divided by estimated. We have exactly the same thing. We go to home, percentage sign, we see that it's 102. Yes, you are right. We're going to apply the delta, and we're going to write the formula entirely, because if we are, for instance, putting here 0 and then 0 and then 0, 0, nothing, what we have in the dashboard, we have the error, the same error that we saw before. So what we can do is actually to write the entire formula. We start by if error, open new parentheses, because we also need to have here -1. That's the delta part, actually. If the value is true, if it's error, we are going to put again the quotes and close brackets. So now we see no error anymore. And now what we're going to do, let's say that we want to do some formatting. And for this formatting, what we are going to take, let's take this color. And then for this, I'm keeping the Control key on pressed. I want to have a white font, and that font to be, let's say that we want to have, let's take area rounded, trying to find a beautiful font. Let's take that Berlin Sans FB, and to increase the size, well, let me a bit zoom out because that's enough. So let's say that we have like this. Let's place it in the middle. Okay, good. And then that specific date, the reason for keeping that column as it was simply because I wanted to hide it and to leave it like this. Now, what we can do is actually to reuse. Here we have the today, and here we have the drop-down list, but at the same time, we want to replicate the same formula. So we are going to say equal text, value from here, comma, quotes, close parentheses, and we have January. So we can play and either change the month and then press on Ctrl Z. Please do watch the video regarding the shortcuts that you have in Excel, and not only in Excel. So we can do the Ctrl Z to get back to the initial format, or if not, what we can do is actually to have that specific part. Then what else we might want to see? We have here, let's say that we want to let me cut this column, insert it here, and expand it a bit, and then let's take it to another level. Let me take this part. So I'm going to press on Control, taking all of this, and then insert recommended chart. And I'm going, no, let me also add some data because it's not easy to, let's say rent 1000, actuals, let's say 2000. And then for the second month, let's take 2000 with an actual of 3000. Okay, good. Now let's get back to our dashboard. Now we have the actuals and the estimated, and we're going to insert a chart. And let's say that we want to take that kind of chart, and we want to place it here. And now we have the ability actually to see how we were month over month. What we can do is actually to right click here, go to our data, right click, add data labels, and we can add the labels here. And then what we can do is to play a bit with the chart design. Going here, we can choose actually the type of design that we want to have. If you want to have, for instance, that kind of chart, let's say actuals versus estimates. And now what we will have here is to have something starting to look more like a dashboard. We can also, for instance, play a bit, and let's say that we want to create a sort of shadow, and yeah, to have it like this with that specific shadow. And if we are changing anything here, let's say that we estimated 1000, it was actually 1200, and we estimated again, let's say that it was 1200 and it was 1300. What we have here is changing the data based on what we have, and we can take here and say year to 0 for December, year to date, all family members, we can see the difference. And this is, I will also save it because, as I said, that would be actually your gift. So I'm going to call it family budget V2. I already created the V1 in a different video, and now you have the V2, which also is adding that specific chart. As I said, stay tuned for omniimago.com because all those files are going to be accessible to you. And then what you can do is simply to go here. So what I'm going to do now is to right click, hide, and let me also go to view, no grid lines, and you will have it like this. Let's go also to column, to row number 5, and to freeze the panes, just to have frozen panes, and then to make it, let's change a bit the font. Let's go again with the same font and make it bold. And that's not very pretty here. Okay, let's take a Britannic bold. No. Let's say consolas be too rigid. Let me go with the standards. Let me go to a simple Arial and double click here, make it bold, currency italic, and then go here, and the dashboard is there. If you want to customize your data, what you can do as soon as you download it from omniimago.com, you downloaded your file, you right click, you do unhide, you unhide your data, and you say is Jane and David, and that's it. Let's say that your currency is still USD, so right click, hide, and now you have, instead of family member 1, you have Jane, and family member number 2 is David, so you can customize your own names, and the family members 1, Jane, or you can see Jane year to date, or Jane June 0, Jane, let me take January, okay, or David January 0, or both of them. And again, we can see Jane or year to date, we can see both of them year to date, and so on and so forth. So I really hope that you enjoyed that video. Stay tuned for omniimago.com. Download your files. Thank you for watching. Have a perfect day ahead. Bye bye.